The chandelier light hit the silverware so sharply it felt like glass cracking across porcelain. My father did not look up when he said it. The money is gone, Elena. My mother's smile tightened, practiced and almost pleased. We've transferred everything to Jason's family. You should have been more supportive of their new home. Conversations around the table thinned out like smoke, then vanished. Forks stopped midway to mouths. A chair leg froze mid-rock. No one looked at me. I set my water glass down gently. The sound was louder than their announcement. I breathed once, slow and steady, and said only, "That's interesting." Because they had no idea what they had just triggered. I grew up in a house where silence did more work than any spoken rule. My parents never said Jason was the chosen one. They never needed to. It showed in the way my mother's hand rested lightly on his shoulder at every gathering, guiding him forward, while mine hung at my side, empty. It lived in the birthdays, his with catered trays and rented magicians, mine with a grocery store cake and a single crooked candle that leaned sideways until the wax ran into the frosting. No one noticed. No one ever scraped the wax off. I learned early to make myself useful instead of visible. When a past due notice arrived by mistake, I was the one who sorted it into the right drawer without asking whose bill it was. When Jason forgot to submit a school project, I stayed up fixing it while he snored in the next room. He got the A. I got a quick, distracted, "Thanks, kid," and a polite nod from my father at dinner, like I was a temp filling in for someone who mattered more. That was balance in their eyes. There was one place in that house where the scales tipped differently. My grandmother Marion's room always smelled like lavender and old paper, the kind that whispered when she folded it. Her bedside lamp cast a warm gold over everything, her glasses, her notebooks, the small wooden box she kept on the table. When she motioned me in, it felt like slipping out of the ward house and into a world that actually saw me. One evening near the end, she asked me to sit. Her voice was thin but steady. "Elena, pay attention now." She opened the wooden box carefully, as if the hinges themselves held a secret. Inside was a silver key, heavy and cool, carved with a pattern I had never seen before. She placed it in my palm and closed my fingers around it, her hand trembling only once. "They'll try to take everything someday," she said. "But I've prepared for that. This key is part of the plan. You'll know when it's time." I didn't understand. I was 20 and still telling myself my family was complicated, not dangerous. I told her she was worrying too much, that my parents weren't like that. She looked at me with an expression I was too young to read, a mixture of love, sadness, and certainty. The kind of look you only get from someone who has lived long enough to stop pretending. After she passed, the house changed like someone had flipped the lighting from warm to fluorescent. My father remarried. The rooms grew colder, brighter, arranged more for show than living. Jason gained a new audience in Simone, who repeated often how promising he was, how much potential he had, how proud we were of him. I slipped into the background, the dependable daughter, the one who would be fine on her own, supportive, quiet, predictable. They built a new family portrait over the fireplace. I wasn't in it. But I stayed polite. I stayed useful. And I stayed exactly what they needed me to be so they wouldn't notice what I was learning simply by watching them. Their patterns. Their excuses. The way they tipped their hand when they wanted something. That was when I finally understood there was still a place for me in this family. Not at the table, but just outside it, where I could see everything clearly. When I replay that dinner in my head, the dining room feels colder than any winter I've ever known. Glass surfaces, white linen, everything arranged too precisely, as if warmth itself had been edited out. My parents sat at the center of the long table. Jason and Simone opposite them. They looked like a portrait someone had staged, each wearing the kind of smile that didn't need joy to hold its shape. My father set his fork down with a soft metallic tap. He didn't look at me when he spoke. "The money is gone, Elena." My mother finished the sentence for him, her voice light and almost cheerful. "We've transferred everything to Jason's family. It just makes sense. You should have been more supportive of our new family." Supportive. New family. The words brushed past me like cold air from an open door. Jason didn't gloat openly. He didn't have to. His posture said enough. Elbow resting on his chair, chin lifted slightly, as if he were already rehearsing his role as head of the line. Simone reached over and straightened the corner of his napkin, smoothing it with unnecessary care. A gesture meant to soften the blow, but it only sharpened it. No one asked what I thought. No one paused to consider whether it was even theirs to take. They spoke of my grandmother as if her plans were an inconvenience, as if her life's work could be refiled under flexible family decisions. I kept my hands in my lap, fingers curled lightly to hide the tremor underneath. My phone buzzed once under the napkin, an email, a notification, a warning. I didn't reach for it. I watched the scene in front of me instead, the synchronized confidence of people who believed the matter was settled. My father finally glanced up, briefly, just long enough to confirm I wasn't going to make a scene. My mother's smile softened, satisfied with her own phrasing. "We just need you to understand," she said. "Jason has responsibilities now. A child. A future to protect." As if I had none. As if my future was a storage room they could clear out to make space for his. I lifted my glass. The water shifted quietly inside. When I set it down, the sound was sharper than I intended. Every face at the table tightened just enough to betray a flicker of doubt. "That's interesting," I said. 3 words. Calm, even, unmoving. My mother blinked. My father swallowed. Jason straightened. They thought it was acceptance. They didn't know it was the moment everything shifted. The parking garage under my apartment building was silent except for the cooling tick of my engine. I sat there with my hands on the wheel, not gripping it, just resting there, as if the smallest pressure might fracture something I wasn't ready to see yet. The overhead lights hummed and flickered. The concrete around me felt suspended between 2 moments, the life I had lived to keep them comfortable, and the one I was about to start. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I just breathed once, steady, then opened the small compartment beneath the dashboard and took out the velvet box I kept there for no good reason I could ever explain until now. Inside, nestled in a strip of faded fabric, was the silver key my grandmother had pressed into my hand years ago. Cold. Ornate. Too heavy for something so small. I turned it over in my palm. The carved pattern caught the light like a secret trying to speak. "Someday they'll show you exactly who they are," she had said. "And when they do, you'll know what to do." I hadn't known then. Now I did. My phone buzzed again. I powered it off without looking. Whatever they were trying to move, trigger, hide, or lock in place would already be recorded somewhere. Marion had made sure of that. At dawn, I called the design studio where I worked and said I had a family emergency. My voice didn't shake. I didn't give details. I didn't need to. Then I dialed the number on the card Mr. Keller had once given me, back when my grandmother introduced us with a subtle, cryptic, "He handles things." He answered on the second ring, voice calm and measured. "Ms. Ward," he said. "I've been expecting your call." Within an hour I was in his downtown office, a quiet glass room above the city. The receptionist guided me in without asking questions. They never asked questions here. That was the comfort and the warning. Milo Keller greeted me with a nod and slid a folder across the table with precise movements. "Your grandmother's instructions activated immediately after the attempted access," he said. "She prepared well." I opened the folder. Audit flags. Frozen notices. Automatic injunctions. A detailed trace of every transfer attempt routed directly back to the same handful of names: my father, my mother, Jason, Simone. Their signatures, not forged this time, marched across the pages in 2 neat rows. But the most important document lay beneath the rest. A diagram of Rowan Holdings, the quiet force behind Ward Manufacturing. My grandmother's signature at the bottom. A clause highlighted in black ink. "In the event of unauthorized access attempts, all controlling rights shall pass to Elena Ward without exception." My breath didn't catch. My pulse didn't spike. Everything simply fell into alignment, like a picture finally snapping into focus. For the rest of the morning, we moved through the steps like clockwork. I filed the necessary authorizations. Signed the letters. Approved the internal audit. Verified the sealed accounts tied to the silver key. Every action quiet, precise, procedural. Control wasn't loud. It was paperwork and timing. By late afternoon, the first fractures reached the surface. Simone's charity lunch at a downtown restaurant, the one she had spent weeks posting about, fell apart in the middle of the meal when every card she carried was declined. A friend recorded the moment her smile faltered, then disappeared completely. The clip made its way through a private circle of socialites in under an hour. "Noah," An old friend from operations called me shortly after, his voice low. There are auditors everywhere, he whispered. Accounts frozen, reviews pulled, people panicking. Your dad looks lost, Elena. Lost. The word didn't bring satisfaction. Just clarity. I spent that evening at my kitchen table, organizing documents into neat stacks. The silver key lay beside them, grounding everything in one continuous line from Marian's hands to mine. I wasn't planning a coup. I wasn't planning revenge. I was simply executing a system she had built for me long before any of them realized they had walked right into it. When I signed the final set of instructions, I closed the folder, slid it into my bag, and turned off the kitchen light. The apartment fell into a quiet that wasn't empty. It was intentional. For the first time in my life, the silence belonged to me. Before I move on, if this slow burn, cold voice kind of story has you listening closer than you meant to, remember this space. Tap subscribe, hit like, do whatever you do when you want a story to find you again. Because the next part is where everything they took turns around and looks them in the eye. The next morning, they came to me. All of them. They arrived at Ward Manufacturing just before noon, packed into a single rental car that didn't match their clothes or the way they carried themselves. I watched from the top floor as the sedan pulled into the loading zone and idled. No one stepped out immediately. The delay alone told me everything I needed to know. When the elevator doors finally opened, they walked in as a cluster. My father first, shoulders rounded. My mother close behind, smoothing the strap of her purse again and again. Simone's lipstick was smudged at one corner. Jason kept checking his phone, swiping up in disbelief each time the same error flashed across the screen. His wife Lauren clutched the baby tighter, eyes on the floor. They hesitated at the threshold of the office. Not mine yet, not officially, but the nameplate on the door had already been removed. It was a bare rectangle now, a gap where authority used to sit. I didn't stand when they entered. Please, I said, motioning to the row of chairs across from my desk. They obeyed, every movement stiff and careful. Milo sat at the small conference table to the side, silent, hands folded. A witness, nothing more. My father cleared his throat. Elena, there must be some misunderstanding, he began. The accounts, my position at the company, all of this can be fixed. We were never trying to. I slid the first document toward him. Let's start here, I said. Frozen corporate assets. Automatic injunctions. Unauthorized transfer attempts flagged by 3 separate systems. Every page stamped with a time, a date, and a digital trail that pointed one direction only, theirs. My father's face drained as he read. My mother reached for his arm, then stopped halfway, her hand hovering in the air before retreating to her lap. Jason leaned forward, jaw tight. This is ridiculous, he snapped. You can't just lock us out, Elena. You don't understand how these structures work. I dropped another paper in front of him. Your access to the trust was suspended the moment you tried to reassign ownership, I said. You signed the request yourself. His mouth snapped shut. Simone's voice came out thin. We were told, she whispered. Your father said the inheritance, we thought it made sense to consolidate things. Jason has a family. He has obligations. It wasn't yours to touch, I said. And you knew that. I turned the final page toward them. The document from Rowan Holdings, the silent majority shareholder behind all of this, Marian's signature at the bottom, the clause transferring full authority to me after any fraudulent activity. The room went quiet in a way no ordinary silence could explain. Something heavy collapsed, something they had assumed would always hold. My father finally looked up at me. Elena, please, he said softly. We made a mistake. We can correct it. There's no need to make this bigger than it is. Mistake. A clean word. A word that tried to erase damage with a breath. I kept my voice level. You didn't lose track of a decimal, I said. You spent the last year slowly moving assets out of the structure Grandma designed, behind my back, while smiling at me across the table and telling me Jason needed it more. You knew exactly what you were doing. My mother opened her mouth. We just thought you'd understand, she said. Jason has a baby. A mortgage. You're single, you rent, you don't have anyone relying on you. It's not the same. We assumed you'd be fine. There it was. The math they had always used on me, finally spoken out loud. There are 2 options, I said. Milo slid the prepared forms across the table. The soft scrape of paper on glass was louder than any accusation. Option 1, I said. I proceed with full charges. Fraud, misappropriation, attempted illegal transfer. You will lose everything, and yes, there will be legal consequences. You will also face questions about every other decision you've made with other people's money. Simone inhaled sharply, her hand flying to her mouth. Option 2, I continued. You sign these statements. Full admission. No claims to the estate now or ever. Dad resigns from Ward Manufacturing effective immediately. You all sign non-disclosure agreements. No media, no back-channel whispers, no crocodile tear interviews. You walk away with whatever you've already taken that we can't claw back without burning the entire structure down. No one spoke. No one argued. Their power had evaporated hours ago. They were just now feeling the chill. Jason grabbed the pen first, not with courage but with the desperation of someone who finally understood the depth of the hole he'd dug. He signed hard, the ink scoring the page. Simone followed, eyes glossy, her signature small and trembling. Lauren held the baby close and looked away. My mother was last. She stared at me for a long time as if searching for the version of me who would have once fixed the mess they created. She didn't find her. That girl had finally put her hands down and walked away from the table. She signed. My father didn't look at his own signature when he added it. He just set the pen down carefully, as if sudden movements might shatter something fragile between us. Nothing fragile remained. Milo collected the forms. The meeting was over in a way that felt absolute. They rose slowly, a quiet procession of people stripped of the certainty they had once worn like armor. At the doorway, my father paused. How long? He asked, voice rough. How long has this been in motion? I met his eyes. Since the day you assumed I wouldn't have a place in this family, I said. He nodded once, a small, defeated movement, then walked away, following the others down the hall. And just like that, the room belonged entirely to me. After they left, the office felt impossibly still, as if their absence had pulled the air back into its proper shape. The city stretched beyond the glass walls, hundreds of windows catching the late afternoon light, each one blinking like a quiet reminder that life went on, indifferent to what had just happened here. I stayed seated for a moment, letting the silence settle. Not the silence they used to keep me in line. This was different. This one answered to me. The silver key lay on the desk beside the signed agreements. Its weight hadn't changed. Its meaning had. I picked it up and felt the cool metal press into my palm. It no longer felt like a warning. It felt like a handover. Marion's photograph stood in the corner of the desk, angled slightly toward me. The smile she wore in it wasn't triumphant. It was knowing, as if she'd expected this exact scene, this exact quiet, long before any of us arrived here. In the weeks that followed, the fallout spread quietly, the way cracks run through glass. Word leaked that my father had retired early. Jason's promotion evaporated into a vague restructuring. Simone's name disappeared from donor lists and party photos with the same efficiency she once used to crop me out of family pictures. I did not chase any of it. I did not correct rumors or offer context. Let them guess. Let them invent softer versions of the truth if it helped them sleep. The facts were already written where it mattered. I opened the proposal folder for the Marion Rowan Foundation, the one that had waited untouched through funerals and weddings and every staged family holiday. Pages outlined support for women rebuilding after financial or familial betrayal. Grants. Legal guidance. Safe housing. A blueprint for something cleaner than revenge, steadier than anger. I read each section slowly, the way people read names carved into stone, with intention, with recognition. When I finished, I closed the folder, smoothing my hand over the cover once. Outside, the lights of the city began to glow one by one. Nothing dramatic. Just the world exhaling into evening. I locked the office and took one last look at the room that had held decades of someone else's authority. Now it held mine. I used to think silence was the space where they put me so they could ignore me. Now I know it's the place I choose when I am done explaining myself. The fortune they tried to steal was never the one that mattered. What I kept was the part they never understood, the calm that follows truth, the boundary that doesn't need permission, the quiet that answers to no one but me. When I walked out of that building, I didn't just take the company or the legacy. I took back myself. Sometimes, late at night in my apartment, I catch myself replaying that first dinner. The candlelight on silver, my mother's satisfied tone, Jason's lazy confidence. For a second, I still feel that familiar sting, the one that says you are second, you are extra, you are lucky just to be here. Then I remember the feel of the key in my palm and the weight of the signed forms on my desk, and the feeling shifts. I was never lucky to be at their table. They were lucky I stayed as long as I did. And if you are listening to this thinking about the people who called you fine right before they pushed you out of the frame, remember this part. You don't have to shout to rebuild. Sometimes the loudest revenge is the life you build in that clean, final silence after you close their door.